Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maya Alexis, and today I will be doing another cloud chat. This is Rodney. He is a software engineer in the finance tech industry, and he just completed and passed his AWS Cloud Practitioner certification. So hi Rodney, glad you could make it today.
Hey Maya, thank you for having me. I'm
So
glad to be here.
yes. So the reason I brought you on is because he recently just took his certification this week. So I thought it would be a good idea to pick the brain of someone who freshly just got certified and just ask a couple of questions about his preparation, what it was like. And one of the main topics I wanted to talk about was what was it like taking the test in person? Because when I make my videos, I've only taken them online in my house. So yeah. Okay, so the first question is, what made you decide to take the cloud practitioner certification out of all of them?
Yeah, so I think the main reason that I took the cloud practitioner exam was it seemed to be the one that was the most like simple fundamental exam or certificate out of all of them. And it felt like that exam was kind of like the baseline high level overview that you would get like the preliminary exam if you wanted to take the more in-depth like developer associate solutions architect exam. um, I feel like this one was kind of like the base one where you can kind of get more understanding of how the AWS services work for future usage.
And did you have any previous AWS experience before you took the test?
No, I did maybe like a little bit of learning on my own,
Mhm.
um, but none like no actual professional work in AWS Cloud.
Okay. And so what did you do to study for it? Like well, the first question in under that topic is like, how did you study for it? Were you the type that watched like a Udemy video or any of those long course videos, then took practice tests and then decided you were ready or
Yeah, so the two main things that I did to prepare was one, make flashcards of all of the AWS services, and two was to take a course on Udemy and the practice exam after the course. So once the course that I bought was the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam, I think by Stefan Merbank
Mhm.
on Udemy, and it has like this AWS Cloud Practitioner course going through all the AWS services and little quizzes at the end of each service, as well as a practice exam at the end of it, so you can kind of like reinforce what you've learned throughout the course and kind of get a baseline of how the actual exam will be. So I'd go through and make flashcards of all the services that could potentially show up on the exam. And then once I went through and kind of memorized each one and what they do, I would go and take the practice exam at the end of it to reinforce what I learned
Mhm.
and kind of see how the questions on the exam would be structured, and go through each question to see not only what the right answer was, but the wrong answers as well, like why they were right or wrong, and then retook it until I think I got around the 80 on the practice exam.
Okay.
And at that point, I felt ready.
I was just about to ask you, when did you feel ready? So your final answer is just when you were at 80% on the
Um,
practice.
I think it was more whenever I wouldn't necessarily say it was at 80%. That was kind of just like the number I had got
Mhm.
to when the last time I took it before I took the exam, but mostly when I felt like I knew what all the services did, and why the answers were what they weren't. When I felt confident and I was had the ability to answer any question that could potentially be thrown, then I felt like I was ready.
And how long did you study for?
Before the exam, I studied for about 2 weeks, a week and a half to 2 weeks,
Okay.
uh, each day for about an hour and a half, just going through the flashcards and the practice exam.
Okay. And like with that, because uh I know a lot of people out here that are getting certifications are people who have full-time jobs. So how was it like having a full-time job and studying and having to come home and you're doing developing all day? Did you do any studying at work?
Not really. Most of the time I was just doing work at work, like anything related to AWS exam preparation, I would do in my own time after work. Um, so it was a bit um, challenging, I would say, just like working for 8 hours and then coming home or going to the library right after work
Yeah.
to kind of prepare, because it's not like they some teams I do think like they'll allot some time for you to prepare for the exam, but my team they just kind of was like learn it on your own time. But yeah, I think that was one thing I also did is I knew like sometimes it would be challenging for me to like go home right after work and kind of study for the exam after I worked all day. So I would just go to the library right after work. So I kind of stay in that work mode.
Okay. That's a good idea, putting yourself in a setting to not be distracted and get into bed.
Definitely.
Okay, so my next question is, okay, what was the most notable things that you remember from taking your exam? Because I remember I took it twice and I failed the first time. And one of the biggest parts that really were hard for me was the tricky questions about like the shared responsibility model. So what were some of the things for you?
I think for me, one of the most notable things that I saw was some of the questions. For the most part, I think a lot of the questions were relatively straightforward,
Mhm.
but there were some questions that I felt like might have been kind of trick questions, that you kind of like make sure you had to read the whole question, um, because if you like just started and like, oh, I know it right off the bat just by reading like half of it, you might miss it. So
Yeah.
those ones I kind of anyone that I felt like I didn't know for sure, I would flag those and make sure I came back to those afterwards. And then upon reading like the second, third time, I'm like, okay. I just felt like the wording was a little bit different, maybe from the practice exams, but after I read it the second, third time, it made sense. As far as like actual services, I would say, um, I think I got a lot of, I think like the main topics about S3 storage, EC2 instances. Um, I didn't really get too many shared responsibility model questions, which I was happy about. But
Okay.
yeah, I think EC2 and S3 are probably the main ones.
Okay. And so walk us through what it was like to take the exam in person.
Yeah, so when you schedule the exam for in person, they tell you to come. My exam was early in the morning, so they tell you to come about 15 minutes before your scheduled exam time to start. So get there about 15 minutes early to sign in, check in with the proctor, and then they can validate your two forms of ID, whether that be like a driver's license, passport, or a credit card with like your name signed on the back. And then after that, they kind of go over how the exam will go and they take your picture. And then after that, they escort you to a locker where you can place your like personal belongings in. So your phone, wallet, keys, anything that you have on you while you take the exam, you just leave it in there. And then they take you to the exam room with the computers in it, and then you get started with the test.
Okay. And is it like regular buildings or it's like a Amazon building or something?
It was just like a regular office workspace kind of building, like kind of one of those you go to the dentist type of buildings. Um, just like you walk in and they have like the reception there, and then they take you to the back rooms, and
Uh,
they have different rooms that you can go to.
okay. And so when you were taking your test, was it other people in the same room as you?
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how many people were in there because I was the first one in my particular room. I think there were multiple rooms that people went to. I was the first one to go into mine. So I didn't really look around too much because I
Okay.
felt like they probably would have thought I was trying to do something suspicious. But I think maybe like six other people were in there. It
Oh,
wasn't too
okay.
many. It was a relatively smaller room.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
And so, like, after you took your test, like, at the end of the test, it just popped up to tell you you passed?
Yeah, so after you complete all the questions and you submit your exam, there were I think three or four like survey questions that they would ask. And then after you complete those survey questions, it would just tell you whether you passed or failed.
Mhm.
Like a congratulations. I'm not sure what the message would have been if you failed, but just said
Yeah,
congratulations
it just
and
said
pass.
you didn't pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, this experience sounds way more less stressful than it was for me because taking the online one, you had to like do this whole thing the day before, download the software used by them that will lock down your computer. Then when you go to take your test, you go through this little screening process you had to do like 15 minutes before where someone's watching you on your camera. You had to show your ID. You had to show your whole room. You had to show your desk has to be completely empty. If they see you moving around or looking to the side or whatever, they can flag you and shut down your test. If they see you on your phone, like when I've done it, I've had to show them my phone is all the way sitting on my bed. Um, and there has been times like my computer starts messing up, but the computer software locked down the computer, so I couldn't like adjust my brightness because I had like sensitive eyes. And like my
Mm,
test was super bright. And so this whole time I'm trying to read, and it's like super bright in my face, and I couldn't do anything about it. But
oh
this
man.
sounds more calm. So would you say that
Yeah.
you would go to the on in-person exam, or next time would you do the online one?
No,
It just
I would definitely take it in person again if I was taking another exam, I would go
Mhm.
in person. I think well, that was kind of one of the main reasons why I wanted to take it in person because I know they're kind of strict about some of the rules for like your computer's desk setup. It has to be a certain way. You can't have like other monitors going on, like they check your environment. I
Yeah,
didn't really want to have to adjust anything like in my personal desk setup at all. I didn't want to have to download any like softwares or anything like that. It just seemed more um, just better to go in person.
yeah,
Um, and I didn't want any chance of like my Wi-Fi internet connection cutting out. And I felt like when I went in person, it was pretty like I was able to focus more on the actual exam, maybe more so than I would have been if I took it at home. So
yeah. Nice. Um, let's see. And my final question for you is, what advice would you give to anyone who is working on taking the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam?
I would say to make sure that you really know the services. It's a very broad span of things that they could potentially ask you. Some may show up on the exam, some may not show up on the exam. So I would say one thing that helped me was kind of associating key words or key terms with different services. So if I saw those, I'd be like, my brain would automatically be like, oh, okay, that's on demand or that's reserved or whatever the case may be. So making like those kind of like keyword correlations help me a lot.
Hmm.
Also, just making sure that if you're going to take the exam, make sure you read the whole question
Yes.
because you definitely might miss something if you just kind of skim through it and like only read half of it and don't follow through to the end of the question. Like the end might have the one actual thing that they're looking for the correct answer. So just making sure you're diligent and reading the whole entire question.
Yeah, that's how they trick you up. Please make sure you read it. Any other things?
Um, Good luck. Don't. I feel like others who have taken it have told me that I like was maybe overly prepared or doing excessive amount of preparation, but I'm glad that I did just because I didn't want any chance of me not passing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I covered everything and was prepared for any question that they might throw at me. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's better to be safe than sorry.
definitely,
No such
definitely,
thing as knowing more when it comes to
exactly.
something greater. But thank you so much for your time. Congratulations again on your exam. And I hope for you viewers out there that this was helpful to you. And good luck if you're taking your exam. Thanks.
Thank you.